Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. Today, it's a lovely morning here in the Gardens. Just a quick introduction. I'm John, Chief Storyteller here at the Gardens, and I'll be your host for today's Chai and Chat. A quick intro to those of you who don't know Spice Garden. We are nestled along the northeastern coast of Penang, and it's a space where nature meets culture. Yeah, Spice Garden is a biodiverse living museum, and we've got about 500 species of plants, lush exotic flora from around the world. And today's Chai and Chat is part of Spice Fam. Yeah, Spice Fam is a garden membership program that was born during the pandemic. Spice Garden had always been a tourist attraction, welcoming people from all around the world, mostly foreign tourists. And when the pandemic hit, we needed to do something different because it brought the travel restrictions brought things to a complete standstill. We needed to do something different. And most importantly, we realized that we needed to connect with the local community because Penangites either didn't know who we were because we're so hole in the wall, we're hidden, like top part of the island. So people either didn't know who we were, or people who knew us thought that we were just a tourist attraction, expensive, lots of like angmos, foreign tourists. So when the pandemic hit, we needed to do something drastically different, and Spice Fam was born out of that. And Spice Fam is all about community. We have 4 pillars that guide everything we do, and they are community, wellness, nature, education, and culture. It runs on a subscription model. So our members, they get unlimited entry to the garden, they get camping passes, they have access to monthly workshops and events, and Chai and Chat is one of them. Yeah, just give me a moment. We have someone joining in. I'm also disabling the waiting room. Okay. So yeah, that was the introduction to Spice Garden and Spice Fam. And today we have very special guests, Jay and Lucas from SEAD. They are doing some really, really interesting and I would say important work, in these like rapidly evolving times. So SEAD is, they are an environmentally focused company specializing in the utilization of bamboo as a sustainable solution to the built environment, land restoration, and community empowerment. So today, Jay, Lucas, thanks so much for joining us. Really looking forward to hear your story. And let's kick things off with an introduction. Yeah, how did it all start with you guys?
Yeah, so SEAD was formally incorporated 4 years ago. And Lucas and I met through a mutual friend. Back then, I was an architecture student I was just done with my architecture studies, and I was already looking up bamboo, researching it as a potential structural material, and then I came across the work of people like Bo Trong Ya and Ibuku in Vietnam and Indonesia, respectively. And it was always something that I wanted to explore, but I never actually considered making a career out of it. I just thought it was something that I could pick up on the way. So that was when I met Lucas, who back then he was running a eco resort that made a commitment to build entirely out of bamboo. And our first project together was actually on the resort itself, and that alone was a big learning curve because we pushed ourselves to build a structure without any vertical columns. And then even though we had Indonesian craftsmen on our team, it wasn't easy turning that into reality. But before that, maybe I'll let Lucas share a bit about how that result came about and what was the inspiration behind
it. Yeah, when we started that resort, the vision was to be a sustainable resort, and we had foreign RC communities around us that we would train and provide jobs for. But when we're looking into environmental sustainability and the impact it makes through in that development, people encouraged us to look into bamboo. My first response was, "Don't talk to me about bamboo. I hate it." Because prior to that, I was in the tourism industry, and wherever I went with bamboo, there's always problems because a lot of the bamboos used for in construction were not properly treated, so they would have a lifespan of maximum 2 years, and then before it crumbles down. So it's always like, to me, it was like that weak material. Then I found out a little bit more about bamboo and how it's the impact it does, and how it's actually a really strong material. You just really need to know how to preserve it and how to design with it. Then it just blew my mind, and it was a rabbit hole from there. So ever since, everything was built out of bamboo. There was no other way.
All right. Cool. And so tell us a bit. I know it's a lot. You know, we had a conversation prior to this call, and you guys are doing so much here. So what is the problem, would you say, that you're trying to solve with SEAD Build? Or what is the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, the SEAD Build is one of the business arms of SEAD Industries, and SEAD Industries was conceived with the idea of turning bamboo into an industrial material. So SEAD Build was the first step, because as we learned to build with bamboo, we realized that actually there is a niche space that we could fill. Resorts, some private homes, people who were already convinced or were looking into sustainable materials as part of their living space. But moving on from that, like, we know that this it's always going to remain a niche. So the next step would be, how can we push bamboo to not just be something that looks pretty on a wall, but also something that actually has an impact on the environment. And seed plant, which is probably going to take off, like in a proper sense this coming year, is that looking at bamboo as a solution for restoration of degraded lands, and also as a way to take carbon out of the air and store it in the bamboo itself, and then harvesting it sustainably, so that you can accelerate the carbon sequestration, the intake of carbon from the air. And at the same time, we're focusing on a way that we don't want to industrialize or scale up plantations in a way that eventually becomes unsustainable. It becomes monoculture. It actually harms the land that it's planted on. But there's actually a lot of people don't know that bamboo is actually abundant in Malaysia, and it's especially abundant at the forest fringes, where there used to be logging, deforestation, where there used to be people used to clear land for agriculture or for mining. And so that actually represents a huge there's an opportunity to not just create a business case, but also to help the communities that stay near the forest edge join what we call the restoration economy. So there's a lot of words that I'm going to use that views that we're going to kind of double click on, we're going to expand on, but that's the main idea.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything to add? Good.
Yeah, Lucas, anything to add on that? The problem at hand.
Yeah, as a big picture, it's that we have this incredible resource here, and we started the company with the idea of stewardship, and that's what SEAD actually means, stewards of environmentally aware development. And so to me, it really is like, if we're not making use of it, we're not being very good stewards of this gift. This gift that, to me, it's almost like it's almost like the intervention of perpetual energy, because it keeps on giving. If you take it, if you use it correctly, and it just does. It does a lot, both for community empowerment and for carbon sequestration, fighting climate change. And so it's good to be able to do a little part in all that.
Yeah. So to expand on that also, what we mean by a resource that keeps giving is bamboo on its own. It already the same area of bamboo filled with the same area of trees would take in 30% more carbon dioxide, release 30% more oxygen into the environment. And then on top of that, if you harvest it sustainably, meaning you take care, you remove the mature plants and you allow the younger plants to grow, not only does that not kill the plant, but also because of that process where the younger plant, like Lucas likes to say that they're teenagers, so they're very hungry for food, and in this case it's carbon. And so as when you encourage the growth of more young plants, the rate of carbon sequestration increases. And not only that, in that process, they're also helping to not just take up carbon from the air to store in their bodies, they're also promoting that carbon storage in their root system and into the ground. So it's basically nature's carbon scrubber.
Yeah. And I think that's so powerful, and a lot of people don't know like it's so much more than concrete, right? Like it's a living, breathing material that continues to, nourish the environment as well. And I think let's talk a bit about perceptions here. I think when it comes to building with bamboo, people probably think like, oh, that, like you said, like if you don't treat it well, it's not gonna last, right? So could you maybe draw a little comparison between concrete and bamboo, for the layman?
Yeah, concrete is a net, like it produces carbon, from the beginning, from the when it's taken up from the ground through the process, and even when you put water, when you mix cement and lime together to form concrete, right? That's also carbon emitting. And so the case is, from a global viewpoint, right? Concrete was something that was invented in the West, and then now you see places like China overtaking the other developed countries in their concrete consumption. In fact, cement is probably the second most used resource in the world after water, and a lot of developing countries, especially in the East, have like forgotten how the way houses were built before, and then we have adopted this mass marketed material, and that's why between concrete and steel, they're the biggest reasons why the building industry is one of the biggest carbon emitters in the world, right? Whereas bamboo reverses that. Like, so when we think of buildings nowadays as they are built today, they're always carbon positive, and you have to find other ways to kind of reduce their carbon footprint. Whereas bamboo as a material itself is already carbon negative. So to use that in your building, whether in small ways or big ways, is already a plus for the environment.
Yeah, and to give you a perspective of how negative carbon is with bamboo, we had a project in France to build like a how you call it? It's like a greenhouse cafe. Yeah. With quite a bit of bamboo involved in there. After doing the carbon capture, because the client was very, very concerned about sustainability, and he asked, "Oh, what about the shipment and all that?" So we did our numbers. and even after all the shipment and stuff, the project is still 9 tons carbon negative. So it's still storing more carbon than it's actually releasing.
And that was bamboo crossing into Vietnam to get the sanitation process, and then going to Europe.
Yeah. Yes. So that's how powerful it is as a carbon sequestrator. You can actually have a structure that is a net carbon sink rather than a carbon emitter.
What about the longevity of the structure? Can you enlighten us a bit more on that?
Sure. Generally, when clients come to us, we tell them expect it to last a lifetime. That's how we would go about it. Of course, it comes with a lot of caveats, right? But the base data is this: once we've done our treatment properly, the treatment will defend the bamboo against normal pests like your termites and your powder post beetles. So that is no longer a problem. Then you're more concerned about like rainwater, you're more concerned about sunlight, and those are problems that we can address with design. So we don't want to allow for decay over time, then we design with enough overhangs, and we don't let it get too much exposure to sun and water. So yeah, simple answer would be a lifetime.
Yeah, but like from a design point of view, from a building point of view, we do take. I mean, there's a reason why we don't just supply bamboo materials. We want to be involved in the design and build process, because like any organic material, bamboo reacts to water, rain, UV, degradation, and those are the things that we have to educate the clients about. Don't expect. I mean, you wouldn't put naked steel out in the rain and then expect it to last 50 years, right? It rusts. So you need to do certain protections, and then same goes with bamboo. You wouldn't leave bamboo out there unprotected. There are certain things you can do to mitigate it, but at the same time, it's even more important in bamboo that you design in a way that helps the bamboo last longer and have a longer lifespan. And so it's not without issues, but I think if you can accept some of these like it's just the way a bamboo building will look like, and what you see Bali, in Vietnam. As long as you follow these principles, bamboo can last as long as a lifetime.
Can you tell us a bit about BSM, and your hopes for the future with the work that you're trying to do?
Sure. What does BSM stand for?
So BSM stands for Bamboo Stewardship Malaysia. So the idea is that we want to extend the idea of stewardship beyond SEAD. So we want to have more people involved in this mission, right? So it's actually a simple framework, and we have 3 medium-term goals under Bamboo Stewardship Malaysia, and all 3 medium-term goals are targeted for 2024. By 2024, we want to empower 500 bamboo stewards. And what do we mean by bamboo stewards? It's basically anyone who makes a living in bamboo in a sustainable manner. So, for example, one of the main targets would be training up sustainable bamboo harvesters amongst Orang Asli communities, so that they can have a non-seasonal source of income that actually contributes to protecting their environment. We also have another program where we then train them on value adding and turn that bamboo that they harvest into biochar. But we can talk a little bit more about bamboo biochar later. But that's also another incredible agent of change. So we also have we have a partnership together with Epic Homes, Epic Communities. And we're helping capacity build for a group of ASIs in Batang Kali, where we help them value add through bamboo treatment, and so that they can churn out good bamboo building materials also. And that all falls under Bamboo Stewards. So 500 Bamboo Stewards by 2024. Secondly, we plan to restore or mostly reclaim 40 hectares of heavily degraded lands. We're not just talking about degraded lands. We're actually aiming for the worst of the worst. For next year, we're taking tin mining that is barren, and the hopes is to turn it around and turn it into a net carbon sink, build soil, and increase its biodiversity. And at the same time, that will also enable more people to become bamboo stewards. Then we have that resource that we can tap into, and the local communities can generate a livelihood on. The third would be to store 187,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year. And that's not a number picked up from the air. We did our numbers, and basically with that amount of bamboo stewards around, if we can produce enough, if we can produce enough bamboo, we'll be sinking that amount of carbon. Yeah. So that's in a nutshell, BSM.
Yeah. Maybe so how BSM got started actually was last year when we ran a program in partnership with Yayasan Hasana and Prihatin, Ministry of Finance, Malaysia, to train orang asli communities, forest age communities to harvest bamboo sustainably. And we provided them with these skills. Some of them already knew how to harvest bamboo, but now we're going to teach them. We taught them. We've gone and taught them how to harvest it sustainably so that they can come back to the same plant year after year instead of having to go deeper and deeper in the forest for bamboo. Provided them tools to make their job easier. And Yayasan Hasana loved the idea and then decided that they wanted us to expand the program. But we realized that expanding a program in terms of number of sign-ups, number of participants, number of harvesters was not going to be sustainable. At the end of the day, this presented us an opportunity to think about, hey, what can we do to make the most impact? And that's how we immediately started thinking about look back at our earlier inspiration for why seed industries should exist, and we kickstarted seed plant, and the pilot project will be that 20 hectares that Lucas mentioned. So it will not only be harvesters now. We're also going to start developing a community of people who produce seedlings, people who learn to take care of bamboo to manage its growth, and then in the future, hopefully 10, 20 years later, this piece of land can be, we can remove the bamboo from it, and then you can restart the whole process of afforestation, where your canopies, your shrubs, your ground cover, all that, they start coming in naturally because the environment that bamboo has generated for it.
I mean, it's so important, right? Because you talk about you tell clients that it's built to last a lifetime, right? And I can see how it's so important that you guys oversee not just the design, but the growing and the harvesting and basically the entire process. And now you've built like a community of of growers, right? And that's so important. It sounds like a lot of work. How big is the team? How big is SEAD?
We get some help.
Yeah, we're a very lean team. And yeah, we're a team of right now
8 full-time.
8 full-time.
8 full-time.
Yeah. But we all hustle. Yeah.
Yeah, but one of the great things about this journey has been how this mission, this goal resonates with a lot of people. And, you know, we have universities wanting to work with us, researchers. We have just really good people who are asking, can we volunteer? Like even we architects who say that if we can't join your build team, can we help plant some bamboo? So, I mean, we get a lot of help along the way, and we manage. I think this next year is going to be particularly challenging for SEAD. So we do have in mind to kind of scale down some and then put more resources in other efforts. But that's all part of the journey. I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we meet.
What's the biggest obstacle right now in the work that you're trying to do? And how are you guys working to overcome it?
I'll start with the build part. I think a lot of education still needs to happen. No doubt, bamboo is a material that's very often associated with temporary structures. There's fire safety concerns. There's durability issues, warranties, insurance, and all that. At the same time, while we're trying to deal with that aspect, there are also clients who are like, "Hey, bamboo is cheap, right? Like really cheap, like dirt cheap, right? So why can't you give us dirt cheap?" And then we have to tell them, "Look, the treatment process is really important. Knowing when to harvest, knowing what type of bamboo to harvest is really important. Getting the right design, and I wouldn't trust just anybody. You get a bunch of bamboo poles and then expect to know how to build it. So all that has to be understood and captured. Yeah, and so that's the building portion. For the restoration portion.
Yeah, for seed plant, seed plant's still very young, so a lot of what we're doing, we're really like we're learning along the way. And I think to us right now, one of the major challenges would be that as we expand this, we need government support. Like we need to get more permits for our bamboo harvesting, and that's a very tedious process. Not only is it tedious, it takes a very long time, especially during COVID. So it's we're now working towards getting more support from the government, from the forestry department. We're working close, trying to bind that relationship better so that they really understand what we're doing and the value it brings to the communities and the environment. So that's something along that we're working on.
Great, awesome. From my side, there's just one more question, and so before we open up to the Q&A, so guys, everyone who's tuning in, please drop your questions down in the chat, and we will respond to them in a bit. Yeah. Before we close, guys, can bamboo save the world?
My quick question. My quick answer would be, the world doesn't really need saving, right? We do. We're a broken bunch of people living in a broken world, in a broken system. But I think the little things that we can do is to adopt that mentality of good stewardship, like that we don't own the resources that we have, right? We're sojourners here. We're just taking care of them. And that's a broken link here. I think we're not taking care, we're not making enough aware decisions. Maybe just partly some people, they're just less educated about it. So if there's anything to do, it's to build up our awareness, know what we're spending on, understand the impact of our decisions, and just kind of make better decisions so that we can do that small little part that makes the world a better place for everyone.
Yeah. Even Captain America needs help. That's why you got the Avengers.
But if you're talking about, how big is bamboo as a climate solution? There's this framework called Drawdown, where it lists down 101 of the most effective solutions for fighting climate change. Bamboo is up there on the top 30s, land restoration up there. So we tick a lot of those boxes. So if you're talking about that, in terms of how efficient, how effective is bamboo at helping make the world a better place, it is pretty far up there. It's one of the fastest growing woody plants in the world. It's quite a no-brainer.
Jay, anything to add on this note?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, you can't. Global climate change is a big enough problem that you can't expect to have one solution. But I think especially if you go through Project Drawdown, which is, I think it's a UNEP.
No, it's not too sure.
Yeah, not too sure. So Project Drawdown, which is it's a very, very good resource. Bamboo is probably the lowest tech. Meaning to say it's a low hanging fruit. Right? As long as you can get the scale, get the supply chain going, then it's something very achievable. And it doesn't take years of research, years of a lot of technological innovation. So it's one of those things, and I think all of us can do our part, and this happens to be SEAD Build's little contribution.
All right, great. If there's one takeaway for the audience here, what would you guys like it to be?
The takeaway.
Or
a call to action.
Build more bamboo stuff. Look for us. Upcoming, we've got so many things happening. SEAD Build is going to continue to put more bamboo into the built environment for Malaysia. So if people are looking to build a gazebo for the house and stuff like that, we're ready. We're here. And on the side of SEAD Plant, our restoration projects are not. We're not doing it as a plantation company, or much rather we would really hope to build much greater awareness amongst Malaysians to understand about bamboo and how it does good for the land and the environment. And so we're doing it on a volunteer basis. So we'll have a lot of programs coming up where people can sign up to come and help be involved in the planting. We'll have maybe even we're thinking about certain planting festivals and so on. So maybe follow us on our Instagram or our social media. Join us in the journey, and there'll be a lot of ways to help support the cause.
Great that you mentioned, because I was just gonna ask, where would one go if I wanted to build a structure, I guess your website would be a good start.
Absolutely, yeah.
www.seabuild.com.
All right, folks, you got that? Okay, I think let's move on to the Q&A. We have one from Filza, and she asked about the supply chain, right? And what are the challenges here to get a consistent supply? This was from Filza.
Good question. Our early years, that was one of the toughest part, because the way we're working is, one of our agenda is to help build community income generation. And so we would go to the orang aslis and so on. But the problem is quite often it's challenging when you have a deadline because they may not be the most professional, like they're not may not be very good at meeting deadlines. And so the key to it is to scale. So right now, as we scale up, let's say if we have 200 bamboo harvesters, even if we only have half of them supplying to our deadline, that's enough for us to make the supply chain happen. And so it's a numbers game.
And next thing is logistics, because they tend to be not so easily accessible. So we're looking for solutions for technological solutions, where we can, imagine if there's an app or program that can help us record, which communities have harvested how much bamboo within the past, say, 2 weeks, and then what's the best logistics route that we can plot through to pick the bamboo at one go to reduce the logistic charge. So we're looking for those solutions. So if you have any.
So it's really like figuring it out as you go along, right? Because this is so new. I mean, I think in I guess this is also a question that I have, like what's the landscape like in Malaysia, with regards to the work that you're doing? Do you all have peers, who do you look up to?
I'm sorry, was the question landscape? What's the landscape?
Who are the other players?
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's a handful.
One hand.
One hand. It's definitely very niche. And there's probably a reason for it. Part would be the downstream, like education. It's not easy pioneering an industry like that and having to do education yourself. That's a lot of costs. But even upstream, like I said, handling the resource, it's not easy. And it requires a lot of patience. It requires that passion, the belief that what you're doing is meaningful, and that's going to drive you forward even when the money doesn't pour in.
Yeah. All right, I think we've got one question by Catherine here, and she's wondering what species of bamboo is used predominantly, and what are the characteristics of it, or rather the characteristics of each of the common species that we find around.
So it depends on what you want to do with it. And I presume, based on our discussion, Catherine's asking about building bamboo for building.
Yeah.
The species that we use, the colloquial names are Samantha, Aka, and Betong, probably in that order. So Samantha is the one that we go to most often, simply because while it doesn't have the best mechanical properties, it's more than often good enough, and it's also very aesthetic in the sense that it grows very straight. So yeah, not many people can accept a crooked column, even though actually bamboo is quite strong crooked also, because that's how it grows. So we tend to focus a lot of our supply on Samantha simply because it's the easiest to manage in terms of construction, in terms of client perception. And then she's asking if I managed to look at the bamboo. So I remember there was one clump, black in color, that they brought in from Indonesia. Initially, black bamboo, the moment you look at it, you immediately think it would be black betong, but it didn't look like betong at all. So I have no idea what that clump is.
Actually, I think I know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's likely a Gigantoclova atribolacea, which is actually a very close cousin to our Samantha. Yeah.
So same family. Yeah. So if I mean, you could try like the moment they get to about 2.5 inches, you could cut them open and then see if it's thick enough.
Yeah.
How thick
Actually,
is enough? Sorry, go on, Lucas.
how thick enough? Generally, nothing less than 4 millimeters is pretty good enough for use, depending on how you're loading it.
We normally, ours anything from 8 mm.
Our average is around 8 millimeters wall thickness.
We're talking about the wall thickness.
Yeah,
so
not the size of the pole. But just now, Jay mentioned something about the strength of the Samantan species we use. I just want to clarify a little bit. When Jay mentioned it's strong enough, it really is, because even for Samantan itself, it's a 3-inch pole, 3-inch diameter pole. You can slam about 9 tons of weight on it axially, and it will not break. The breaking point is likely around 9.5 tons.
And what does that equate to? Sorry, 9 tons. Just so
so you can stack like 4 cars on top of it.
4 cars. Wow.
In one pole. Yeah. I mean, that's the breaking point. So, for example, like when we design structures, when we're using a 3-inch Samantan, we know we would employ, when we're calculating the structural load, will generally exercise a safety factor of 10. And so if it can take 10 tons, we will assume that this pole can only take 1 ton. And that's very safe, right? So even one pole taking 1 ton, that is just already incredible. Like pound for pound, the Samantan alone already has way higher compressive strength than concrete. In terms of tensile strength, pound for pound also higher tensile strength than mild steel. So it's a ridiculously strong material. So it's really not much of a concern. And very often people ask us that question too. So that's a quick answer to it.
It does sound like a no-brainer, lah. Definitely.
Wait, so there's a second part to Catherine's question about fallen bamboo. We wouldn't normally recommend to use fallen bamboo, right? There's a reason why it fell.
Yeah, in fact, first of all, if it fell naturally, it generally means either it was attacked by a disease, some kind of mold, or water, or some pests, or it became too old and it's time for it to retire itself and decompose for nutrient cycle. So that means it's generally not much good for construction. There are also situations where a storm blows by and a couple poles fall. And in general, when we harvest bamboo, one of the things we try to do is we shorten the amount of time between the bamboo gets felled and the treatment, so that we expose it as little as possible to the natural elements at its untreated condition. That improves the quality.
Okay, got it. Oh, it sounds like you guys, the next thing that we need to do is to have you come over to the gardens and run a little workshop for people to build small things.
Sure, why not?
Okay, I think we've covered everyone's questions. Anyone, just a last call. If you have any questions, please drop it into the chat.
Yeah, and they can reach out to us if they have a question pop up later on.
Yeah. So if for everyone here, if you want to find out more about the work that Lucas and Jay are doing with SEAD Build, just head on to SEADBUILD.com. Correct? That's seedbuild.com. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you so much for the questions, guys, and thank you for joining us. The best way you can support their work is to find out more about their work and to find out about what we're doing with SpiceFam as well. And that's our website, tsgspicefam.com. Yeah, tsgspicefam.com. We have we have workshops every month, from gardening activities to wellness, yoga, for adults and kids, dance classes. And chai and chat is something that we try to do every month. We have casual conversations with people who are doing good work, like SEAD. And, we just sit down over a cup of tea and just to sembang, to find out to hear their story. And this is something that we try to do every month. So for everyone who's here, thank you so much for joining us. Please keep in touch. And we will be putting up a recording of this conversation on YouTube, so you can watch it after. You can also share it out. Yeah. So Jay, Lucas, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm definitely inspired, and I think everyone here will be going away with greater awareness of bamboo and how it can make the world a better place.
Thank you for the invitation.
Welcome.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure to be here.
So come
Just want
visit.
to say we admire your work a lot, and it's one of our favorite places in Penang.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you.
keep up the good work.
Oh yeah, one last thing. If anyone's in Penang, if you're in Ipoh, we've got a couple activities happening this weekend. We have a hike going on tomorrow with a local guide from Teluk Bahang. He's a proper outdoors man, and his name is Pak Budin, and he's taking visitors for a hike, and the trail starts from the garden. And we also have a walk with Jolene, who works she's the founder of Langer Project Penang. So she's taking a group of people on a walk around the gardens. So if you're in Penang, just check out our website and join us. Yeah. So that's it for today. Thank you very much. We will see you around.
Bye.
Thank you, John.
See y'all. Okay.
Thank you, John. Thank you, TSG.
Bye. Thanks.